Hey everyone, so today I'm going to be talking about Never by Ken Follett. And I've said this in several other videos that Ken Follett is the author that really got me back into reading as an adult. So when this book came out a few months ago, I couldn't wait to pick it up and give it a try. Unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed. So the premise of the book is that when he was doing research for Fall of Giants, which is around World War I, he says he was shocked to find out that no world leaders wanted World War I. They all knew how catastrophic it would be, but inch by inch they kept making these decisions that were, by themselves, moderate and reasonable decisions, but each one of them just kept moving the world closer and closer to war. So Never is basically a thought experiment of, can this happen again? And what would that look like in a world with nuclear weapons? This is marketed as a thriller, and even though I enjoy Ken Follett's writing style and like reading his prose, when I read a thriller, I expect there to be like this sense of impending doom. And in Never, we're talking about the chance of nuclear war, and I never got that feeling of the world's going to end. Which, if anything's gonna feel that way, it should be nuclear war. But at no point did this give me a thriller-like vibe. So this book has four main points of view. There's the United States President, Pauline Green. There's Abdul, who's an undercover agent for the CIA. There's Tamara, who's a CIA agent. And there's Kai, who is the Chinese Vice Minister of International Intelligence. Let's first talk about President Green. She is in her third year of her first term in office, meaning her re-election campaign is in basically full swing. And one of her opponents is this macho man who is constantly calling her too weak to be president, and he's one of those people that is, what's the point of having nuclear weapons if you don't use them? And we have the biggest, baddest army. Why do we tolerate stuff from other people or other countries? Let's go show them who's boss. So there's a bit of pressure on her to act assertively and show strength. In addition, she's also dealing with some family drama where her daughter's acting up in school and she fears that her husband may be drifting away and possibly getting ready to divorce her. All of those background details were alright as far as character development for me, but when it comes to the plot, at no point is it implied that she made a decision hastily or irrationally because she was distracted by either re-election or family drama. So for the main plot, it served no purpose. The next point of view is Abdul, an undercover CIA agent in Chad, which is a country in Africa. His role is basically he's trying to find the equivalent of bin Laden or any leader of a terrorist group. That there's one particular that he's hunting down and he's trying to locate. This point of view was actually my favorite one to read. It's the one I was the most engaged in. However, you could take his whole point of view out from the book and the main plot would go on unchanged. So he served absolutely no purpose in getting the story from A to Z. The third POV is Tamara, and she collects information from undercover agents and spies and informants in Chad, and unfortunately she has a bad boss. Basically her boss is one of those guys that didn't think that women belong in the CIA and wants to discredit her as much as possible while taking credit for anything that she does well. And this does play a role in the plot. There are a couple times where, because of that relationship, things happen or things don't get prevented or things don't happen that should have happened that trigger the first couple of events in the escalation process of something small possibly leading to nuclear war. For the first half of the book, her point of view is really important. But after those first couple of events in a string of events, she doesn't play a role. She's just a side character watching what's happening on the news. And the last point of view is Kai. He's the Chinese Vice Minister of International Intelligence. His POV is the only one I felt was actually relevant from start to end. And the background noise that he was dealing with, it actually does directly impact what decisions he makes and ultimately what decisions China makes. So his point of view was the one that I have no complaints about at all. He was a fully developed character, integral to the plot. You had to have him, and he drove where the story was going. So overall, for the 4 point of views, the character development was actually done pretty well, but the plot lines were horrible. They were all over the place. Most of them weren't even relevant to the main story that was being told. And speaking of the main story, I have a hard time imagining a situation where China and the United States might go to nuclear war, where there is no contact with Russia, England, France, India, Pakistan. None of the other nuclear powers were involved in this book at all. It was just US, China, and North Korea was involved. And if this is, again, a thought experiment of what would a World War I situation look like in modern day with nuclear weapons, you have to include all of the nuclear powers. If the United States and China blow themselves up, something tells me Russia is going to be a bit interested, England, France, the rest of the world is going to want to know what's going on. But in this book, never mentioned in any political sense. There's a comment that Russia has more nuclear weapons than China, but that's it. Their political beliefs didn't mean anything. There was no conversations, nothing. So in my mind, that's just another example of a horribly written plot. So what I did like about the book is the idea that the most likely cause of a nuclear war between major powers is going to actually start off with something that has nothing to do with the major powers. This was a small issue in Africa, which escalates up to a bigger issue in Africa, which eventually gets outside of Africa to where US and China are politicking against each other, and eventually things get out of hand. So besides that starting point and the character development, I can't really say anything else was done well in this book. Again, I do enjoy his writing and kind of enjoyed reading this, so I gave it 3 stars just because if I don't think about it too much, I could enjoy it. But you give it any type of scrutiny, things start to fall apart. For my own personal scoring system, it ended up at a 59 out of 100, which is pretty bad. The next closest one was 76. Now, I've only started using this for the last 11 books, and this finished 10th out of 11. So not a good showing, but I don't have a huge sample size to compare it to yet. For enjoyment, it was slightly above average because I was enjoying all the characters I was reading about. It wasn't until I got to the end where, looking back, it's like, okay, that really didn't mean anything. So there's a whole bunch of wasted information there as far as the main plot goes. For the plot, I've already spent enough time criticizing that, so that was obviously a poor showing. The world building, in some parts, I thought it was done really well, and others, there's just huge gaping holes, so at best I could say that was average. Characters, that was actually done pretty well. So if this was being rated just on characters, it would be 4 out of 5. So that propped it up a bit, but there's only so much one part of this book can do. The pacing was fine. It wasn't fantastic, but it didn't drag at any points. And the writing style, again, I like his prose, but I didn't get that impending doom feeling that I would expect from a thriller. And for discretion, I didn't give it any other points because there's nothing really that stood out to me as being above and beyond. That's it for my disappointing review of Never by Ken Follett. Let me know in the comments if you've read the book and if you agree or disagree with anything I said in my review. So until next time, bye.